One thing about masculinity and having a heart is that it's not all missiles, it's not all pedophile rings, it's not all child sacrifice, cannibalism and pedophilia, it's not all 500 Korean ICBMs capable of having thermonuclear tips. This constant invalidation, this constant negativity around masculinity, this constant threat, this threat narrative constantly. One would think that all media was designed for the sole purpose of invalidating the Y chromosome in the species. I wonder why. I wonder why there would be an agenda to invalidate an entire aspect of a species, reproductive ability. I wonder. I wonder if it's not really a psychological operation to render us incapable of repopulating a decimated biosphere, or perhaps be synchronistically enmeshed inside a machine mind, probably a man-made machine mind. That would mean downgrading the human sensitivity. That would mean demonizing a sacred masculine. And of course, that would include denigration of children and women, such as satanic, global, elitist stratagems go. It really is, my friends, the elite versus everybody else. This is their apocalyptic eternal war, including their own ancient scripts that they've even written. It's a strange situation where we wonder whether history is really something that was lived or created retrospectively, including one's own artistic history, we could even say. For I find myself in a position of not quite recognising who I am as well. That's 2020-2025 for you. I suppose we're all a little bit like that. I suppose that there's a certain sort of apologetic or, believe me, I'm virtuous sort of signal that we'd all, I'm a good one. I'm not the problem. Well, essentially, none of us are the problem, except that we're all being used against each other in algorithmic, socialised data digital warfare. It's probably all some kind of AI takeover. I'm sure there's a real oil energy crisis happening over there. And global currency reset, petrodollar dominance, end of an era, end of World War II era. And the 500-year colonist. I mean, everything we think we are, as New Zealanders, is, everything we think we are, our fundamental identity as whites, as colonials, as pseudo-Europeans, our legitimacy is, our legitimacy as a sort of race is questioned. And, I've been reading a lot about the corruption of the West on mythic terms, how we have separated a holistic understanding of nature, time even, into, compartmentalized, militaristic, sectarian, this division, this splitting, this separation. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not meaning to say that the Orientals have a, we're all evolving as a species, but I think there's something in this current conflict which is designed for a power restructure in the world. And, quite frankly, if half of what the Epstein stuff is true, it could just be more psyops, of course, then, I think we're all reasonably aware of the sinister nature of the Western apparatus and the way it's been enslaving and subjugating most of the world. Ask the rest of the world about it. They'll tell you. It's basically a criminal cartel. Literally. So, dunno. I think it's a good thing that it goes down myself. It's just whether it wants to pollute and drag all of us into it. Anyway, you probably don't need my metaphysical... we just live in very interesting times, my friends, and one has to think broadly and speculatively outside of the box to apprehend what's going on. And as an artist, I suppose, art is about mediumship. It's about information. So, accessing the field of information, the cultural field of information that I exist in, is paramount. You can't make art unless you know what it's about and for who. And those questions are actually reasonably blurry these days. And I suppose one would have to have a sense of one's cultural identity for that. So yes, James is actually talking about a identity issue again, in terms of how we see ourselves as New Zealanders in the Pacific. Are we aligned with a, obviously, and I don't mean to make it about personality politics with Trump. I think it's not even worth mentioning that side of it, whether, the puppet. I'm not talking about the puppet show. I'm talking about the obvious machinery. The obvious machinery of the death farm in which we obviously inhabit this false reality that we come to know as our, current consumer privilege. It's bollocks. It's actually based on nothing but holding the rest of the world to ransom. And New Zealand is quite smug inside that protection racket. And frankly, we don't need to be. We're a very resource-rich country. We could look after our own way better than what we are, even if we're not part of a Five Eyes syndicate of, whatever it were. Okay. Art, politics, class. Yeah, I suppose I'm a bit of a regressive primitivist. I like to know what things really are about. A man brought me flowers today. He wasn't one of those bad dudes. He's a healer. And I suppose underneath it, I think my art is a form of psychosocial healing. At least that was always the premise. And I have probably acted out alter egos through it. But nonetheless, I think, as a sensitive person, it's been a bizarre self-investigative odyssey. Probably a psychiatric odyssey. Maybe that's an existential one of each person's soul that many people actually hold at bay. Maybe I'm actually going through my bardo, my death experience while being alive. Maybe by sharing that existential and spiritual angst process, I'm merely a messenger. Anyway. Happy Easter. Thanks for listening.